This week on Unconventional Lives, we're discussing the importance of stretching as we age.
I am a stretch master.
Really? Raise the other arm.
No.
Why not?
Because it hurts.
Okay, stretch master. Did you stretch this morning? We're glad you're with us.
Hey, I'm Craig.
And I'm Kelly.
Join us as we share unfiltered, empowering conversations about love, marriage, fitness, travel, and living boldly.
Tune in as we prove you can have it all and live an unconventional life. Welcome back to the Unconventional Lives show. Today we have Kevin Akbari, who's the founder of Postura and a specialist in assisted stretching.
Stretching has become a thing.
It has.
Yeah. And we're learning about it. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Yeah,
We're glad
welcome,
you're with
Kevin.
us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real thrill to be here.
I have to explain how and why Kevin is here.
Yes.
So our number one fan, maybe our only fan, my mother, she lives in a senior community and she has struggled with mobility for a long time. I don't even know how long. A long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Decades.
And she had gotten to the point where she was now wheelchair bound and struggling to even transfer and move around.
Yeah.
And she found Kevin, who is a specialist in stretching. And she called me one day, just giddy, Kevin. And she's like, I have somebody you need to interview. I have a guest for your show. I'm like, okay, Mom. And she's like, it's Kevin. He's my stretch guy and he's amazing. And it really has been, has been amazing.
Yeah, it's
but
been
you've been
life-changing.
able, in a short amount of time, have been able to completely change her life.
Yeah.
And it sounds overrated, but it really has. I mean, she's literally walking. She called me this weekend. I walked all by myself.
Yeah. Unassisted. Yeah.
Unassisted.
That's
Which
that's
is
a big
huge. And I do so appreciate that you're working with her. Tell us about assisted stretching and was it different than traditional stretching that anyone could do? But how can assisted stretching really change the whole thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's so fun working with your mom. And she's kind of a perfect example of, the model that I've created with Postura. So assisted stretching is where an expert certified professional comes to your home. In our case, we do in-home services for our clients and takes you through guided stretches and basically creates a load on your body, lays you on a massage style table and puts you in certain positions that you just can't get into yourself. So you're getting a deeper stretch for a longer stretch. A lot of people don't stretch themselves for long enough and can't get into the certain positions they need to see the maximum effect of stretching out their muscles. What we do specifically that makes it a bit unique and different than traditional stretching, if you think about, you might be at home, you might be at the gym, you might lay on the ground or reach over to grab your foot to do a hamstring stretch, things like that. What we do is we use our bodies to create load and force against the client's body who we're stretching. So there's kind of a push-pull reaction where we're pushing the person's body into a certain position and then we're cueing them to push back into our body. And that stimulation creates different kind of neurological effects where you build mind-muscle connection so you can learn how to use certain muscles in your body that you probably are not using on a day-to-day basis, which leads to misalignment and imbalances. So it's almost kind of a symphony of breathing, stretching, strengthening, moving, and all these things kind of get coordinated through an expert because they're there to guide you through the flow that gets created specifically for your body. So I think having somebody there to do it and guide you is one of the biggest benefits and differences that we can see. And then the deeper you get into it, you realize, wow, having somebody's body is the load and force that I can use to stimulate my own senses and muscles, just takes it to the next level.
Yeah. And it is really interesting because you have done yoga. Kelly has done yoga for ever. I mean, as long as I can remember, you've always loved doing yoga. I've always, if I went to the gym, it's just go, get on the machine, go, stretch. I ain't got time for that.
You still struggle with
I do
taking
still
time to stretch
struggle.
before and after.
Yes. But in the last several months, I have discovered yoga.
Yes.
And, we are, I'm 58, you're 55. We are pushing our bodies harder than we ever have in terms of fitness and lifting and exercise. And she finally convinced me, like, we're going to yoga. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure I'm going to like this. And now we do it every Saturday, and I get to like Friday, and I'm like, I can't wait to stretch it out.
It does train your brain differently to crave that. I think our muscles and just the mind memory of it, and just wanting to feel how you say it, but just to feel the tension, but then the release right after, and you just feel so much better.
And I'm assuming that's similar to what your folks get when they're, you're pushing them past that spot where your brain goes, I don't bend that way anymore.
Right.
That's very well said. One thing that gets lost when you go through the motions of whatever it is you're doing, it could be health and wellness related, going to the gym, exercising. It could be your work. It could be family, friends, relationships, is progression and like progressing through your life, right? If you kind of think about it that way. And just kind of using health and wellness as an example, there's been so many times, including myself, that I struggle with in my own health and wellness routine. I'm just kind of doing the same thing. I'm showing up to the gym. I'm going through the same routine. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm moving the same amount of weight. And I'm just kind of wondering why my body isn't changing. So having a professional come in and keep track of everything and do kind of like the thinking for you, we can kind of ensure that you are progressing and you don't get stuck in this, well, okay, I'm kind of flexible, but that's kind of it. So I'm doing the same stretch every day. At some point you hit a cap and you plateau with that.
Right.
So having somebody come in and push you a little bit more farther, be mindful of what's going on and progressing you through a program, which is what we create at Postura, I think has a lot of benefit because you're progressing through it. And that's a really big part of what we do.
Well, and it's interesting because I was going to the gym myself, and saying like you were just talking about, Kevin, I had this sort of, these are the things that I do. And that was my routine. That was the stuff. But you were 100% correct. I noticed I wasn't progressing.
Right. You get comfortable.
You do. And so we started using an app called Fitbod. And even today, like it throws in stuff. I'm like, I've never done that. Like, we're actually just like, funny story. It did like the TRX bands thing. And we were there one day and we were trying to like watch the video and look at this contraption of ropes and straps and we're kind of completely literally 180 degrees out of sync with the way we should do it. Right. And this nice lady, she's like, you're facing the wrong direction. Like turn around the other way. It'll be way better. Because we're thinking like we're gonna face plant here at any moment because it's like, but I think it is a great point that Kevin makes, which is having something, whether it's an app or a professional, or even if you're going to the gym with a partner or a friend, and just trying something new to push beyond. Sure. Because I do feel like your body gets these sort of arbitrary limits, and I think and you see this, Kevin, I think from the like 10 or 15 or 20 years beyond where our age is. And we saw this with our parents and even with my mother. You get to this point where your brain kind of goes, that hurts, this hurts, don't. And it's just sort of, your brain can almost immobilize you to the point where like, just sit in this chair and don't do anything because everything else hurts.
Yeah. So you don't have to feel hurt.
And I feel like that's very much where my mother was. She was just like, everything hurts, so I'm not going to do anything. Yeah. And your brain sort of puts all these hard stops everywhere. And somebody like Kevin can come in and like just gently push you beyond, and your brain goes, oh, hey.
Not as bad as I thought.
Not as bad. I haven't been able to move that way in 10 years. And I'm sure you have giant breakthroughs all the time with your clients like that.
Oh, absolutely. Your mom is an example. Each session we're having one small breakthrough, and those breakthroughs, although they're small, they add up over time.
Yes.
And you're spot on with what you're saying, Craig, is there's actually a muscle guarding effect that we have in our mind. There's a lot of different psychological things that are happening just by moving our limbs of our body, analyzing where are we right now in space? Like what's the coordinates, almost like a GPS of like, where is my arm relative to my torso, relative to my leg? And over time, we fall out of alignment, we have imbalances, we get injuries that kind of put fuel into those fires, and we start kind of holding and closing in. And it's just like the next best option. You get to a point, it's like, well, I'm just not going to move anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we kind of freeze and lock into those positions. And a lot of times it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, to where we can open the body back up. And there's a big psychological component that comes with that.
Yeah.
So
I was
true.
just thinking that, because it is, I mean, how much of it is like have an injury and I physically can't do this anymore versus your brain going, hey, we're not going to do that anymore. And I'm sure for you, I mean, you're probably part psychologist of like, let's just go a little bit more. And then you have that moment of like, I haven't done that in forever.
Very much so. There's the certified stretch practitioner role that I play. There's the psychologist therapist role that I play. There's that coach and support role that I play for my clients. So it's a lot of different hats that are being worn, and it's very different for a lot of different people. Each person is unique to their circumstances and what's going on with their body and their mind.
Yeah.
Well, well, what are some of the other areas that you find people who, our age, over 50, what are some other areas that are dramatically changing that you see cause an effect to cause a need for this individualized stretching? What are some areas that, some changes that happen that you're seeing could benefit from this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you take a step back and just look at us as humans and the aging process that we go through, using kind of the example that you used, Kelly, which I love, the seasons of life. You think about from like 0 to 25 years old, that's spring, right? Like you're new to the world. You're developing your sensories. You're understanding how to move your body. You're observing. You're looking at things. You're growing. You're learning language. You're going kind of through that, right? Elementary school, middle school, high school. You're kind of figuring out how the world works. Such a rapid growth. And it's almost like nothing can really phase you. You might break your arm. You might break your ankle. Something might happen to you. You recover so rapidly from that. Your hormones are developing. You go through puberty. And then you get to about 25 to, let's say, 55, let's call that summertime, to where now you're a little bit more seasoned. You're kind of at your prime now. Your hormones are at max level now. Your body has developed. You've kind of got an understanding. You begin to have an understanding of who you are and how the world works. You've developed different social skills. And now what? You've kind of made it through college. You're going through your career. Not much can still really phase you that comes up in your life. You're developing relationships. So your focus in life starts to shift a little bit. And then you go into fall. And that's like 55 to 75. And that's kind of the space that we're talking about right now. So at this point, you've developed your career. You've kind of matured in that career area that you're in. If you've chosen to have a family and raised kids, they're kind of off to college at this point. They've kind of developed themselves. They're going through their own seasonality, right? Sure. So you get to that position, like you all talk about on your channel, is you're a 55 and older empty nester. Yeah. And this is a new season for you because you're kind of figuring out, you're looking at your spouse, for instance, you're thinking, hey, nice to meet you again. Like, where am I at? Like, these are gone. So it's like, hey, like.
You have a name. It's not just mom. Yeah.
I still like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So it really is a new season. So I see people in that group go two ways. They've either gotten shut down and gotten beat up by life and all the responsibility and the challenges they've overcome, and they just kind of plateau and just ride that out towards through that season and into winter. Yeah. Then I see people in that season that decide, you know what? I want to rekindle or redevelop or reposition myself in my life. Right. And that can be in my relationship. It can be maybe in my career, maybe spending less time doing business and pulling back a little bit. and really enjoying their life. And on a health and wellness perspective, what we're talking about here is I see people getting involved in, there's almost like this rebirth that's going on. People are getting into their blood work. They're taking a look at their hormones, like you guys talk about, and elevating that and putting them back to almost like a summer season. It's almost like you're going back in time. And redefining what aging looks like. So that's such a beautiful process to go through.
Yeah.
But I've also seen that it's a bit of a tricky one because at that point, if you haven't kept up with your body, haven't kept up with your health and wellness, you kind of have to relearn it, and you have to start from the beginning. Because what I see is some people they go straight back into the gym. They go into running. They go into pickleball is a big one I see. I have a lot of clients who play pickleball. I know you guys have talked about that in some of your videos. And they don't realize that their body has changed quite a bit.
Right.
Their hormones have dropped. Their flexibility and posture has declined. Their muscle masses came down. A lot of different things happen to us. So that exposes them to injury risk or risk of injury. So I see people that are kind of making it through and might get injured, and then it's really hard to come out of that. And I see people that are also being a little bit more proactive and are staying on top of the fundamentals. And I personally believe, especially based on my own experiences that we'll get into, is stretching is so special to me because I see it as a fundamental exercise or action to take on one's body.
Yeah.
It's almost like making sure the gas is full in the car, the tires have thread on them, the tires are aligned, your oil's changed. It's like doing the basics to prime your body for this new season that you're in your life to go and explore and live it to its fullest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So those are the different doors I see that open up for people in that season of their life. And it can make the difference of, you think about the long-term play because after fall comes what? Winter. And then you're in it for the long haul. So any kind of work that you can do now is going to set you up better down the road a few decades later, if we're all fortunate to go through that aging process and make it to that point.
Building and sustaining the strength and vitality to get you through to live your best life to the end.
Well, and there's some great theories, and I'm learning more about this, and I think there's a lot of science going on trying to figure out that, things that we are doing now, even though we sort of started late and but we've lost the weight, we're working out, the muscle and the strength and the agility that we're creating and putting on right now can really fundamentally change that winter season because the one of the statistics that I still just am shocked about is falling as a senior. If you're over 75 years old, a fall and breaking a long bone or a hip can be a death sentence, and a lot of that has
fairly rapidly.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with, do you have the muscle mass to support the bones? But even with what you're doing, Kevin, with the mobility, is being able to when everybody falls, everybody's going to stumble. When that does happen, do you have the agility, the ability to take that step and stop, can catch yourself before you fall?
Sure.
And if by working on that now, you can really save yourself a lot of grief in that winter season.
Very much so. There's a study out there that says that we lose 10% of our mobility every decade of our life until we hit 50. And then once we hit 50, we lose about 1 to 5% per year.
Yeah.
There's an exponential shift that happens to us at that 50-year-old kind of age range where the seasons are shifting. Yeah. It all comes, I think life is all about preparation, right? That's one thing that I've learned the hard way sometimes in my own life, actually.
Sure.
So it's tough having conversations sometimes with a client that's 55 years old, playing pickleball 3 times a week, going to the gym, and wondering, well, have somebody come to my home to stretch me? I don't need to do that. And if I do, I can do it myself.
Right.
Okay. I completely understand. I respect that. And then that same client might actually call me and say, hey, listen, something happened to me when I was playing pickleball.
See, this is why we should play pickleball. This is a life warning. Sorry, go on. Any excuse not to have to do pickleball.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Yeah, and that in one injury can quite literally handicap you if it's not because you can't recover from it the same way.
No.
Right.
So it all comes down to prevention and thinking about this as an investment because, again, Kelly, to your point, it's like the foundation of the house. It's the structure of the house.
Sure.
And without a strong foundation and structure, it doesn't matter how much you might upgrade your kitchen or your
Right.
bathroom and do your flooring, aesthetically kind of, enhance what you have. If the
Sure.
bones aren't good, quite literally, at some point the wind's going to blow and you're going to have an issue.
Right.
Right.
It's the break.
Again, stretching, I feel like, is such a fundamental core
Yeah.
exercise for people to do to prime them for anything, to prime you for grabbing something out of the cabinet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or bending down to pick up a box from Amazon that came to your door.
But I also think too, thinking about my mother-in-law and how she has not been able to be mobile for a very long time. And just to know and to see her walking unassisted is exciting for me, for her, because I know that the work that you're doing with her, with her stretching and her mobility and her confidence, really, and her mindset, it's really a holistic approach because it's truly changing her mindset, and her physicality that she can now do is going to free up and bring back all of the things that brought her joy, like gardening and having community with her neighbors and just going on walks. And I mean,
Yeah.
she's been an avid gardener. She's pretty much the one who taught me how to be a gardener. And that has not been a part of her life in many, many years
Yeah.
because of her lack of mobility. And to know that she's now going to be able to start that, maybe at a smaller level, of course, but that would bring her joy. That's just amazing. I just think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And one thing that we're looking at, this is outside of stretching. This is just, again, talking about us as like a human species, right? There's a lot of tough things happening in the world right now, but there's a lot of amazing things also happening. And a lot of those amazing things, I think, are happening in science and healthcare.
Yeah.
Where we're really using all this technology that's developing over the last, decade or two. And now we have AI, which is going to have this exponential effect, I think, in our lifestyles, to where we're getting to a point where we've kind of figured out how to live long. We've got that part figured out, but we need to kind of figure out how to live well.
Yeah.
So we're living a lot more longer, but how do we now improve the quality of the life that we're having in our later years?
Sure.
Right.
Some of my clients, one of them in particular that crosses my mind, he's 92 years old, lives independently, gets in the car, goes to his physical therapy, goes to the grocery store, etc. He says as a joke, and I'll never forget this, is that, Kevin, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself.
Right.
And I'm thinking, shoot, what an interesting comment. What an interesting comment, because he nailed the dilemma that we're starting to see ourselves in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. We've talked about this before, but I do feel like our generation is somewhat of an experiment. It's always fascinating to me to look at, at how long people lived throughout time. I mean, even if you go back 100 years,
Right.
which over the span of time is nothing.
Right.
You go back 100 years, I'd have been dead 10,
at
15,
least.
20 years ago. And there's no reason. We talked about this on a show the other day. One of the sort of aging influencers that we follow, she keeps calling like the 50s as midlife. Like we could live well by taking care of ourselves, doing this. We could live well into our hundreds, and not live into our hundreds and exist,
Right.
but like be functional, productive, still doing,
a full lives
at 100 or 100 plus or 110. There's no reason why, especially with like Kevin mentioned, AI and these advances in medicine and
science.
I even feel like just the advances in understanding how our body works as a holistic machine as well, not just throwing meds at everything. We have every opportunity to live well into 100, and you're seeing that. I know Kevin's seeing it firsthand with the seniors that you're working with.
Yeah, I am, and it's really exciting to see. And again, it comes down to the little things that make that difference. How many times do you reach out to grab something? Like, if I can make that a few percentage points easier for someone to do, make it that much more comfortable, and they're repeating that multiple times a day, that has an effect that builds up and accumulates. into
Yes.
something bigger. Your mom being a perfect example, with her, we're building a little bit more independence, a little bit more confidence, a little bit more mobility. I'm not expecting her to walk around and do laps,
Right.
by the end of the
Right.
month, but those little things are what just kind of lift you up physically and psychologically. There's a big mental component to
Yes.
what we do
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It is funny how you can unlock your brain
Right.
to allow you to do
Right.
things. So speaking of the physical aspect of it, Kevin, you have a fascinating story
Yeah.
of how you got into this. Not
Yeah. Why
a
stretching?
great story. I mean, you really nearly died and were able to, and I've seen pictures of your hardware that is kind of holding you together.
Well,
And
tell us a little
yeah,
bit
tell us
about
about
that.
it, please.
Yeah, so similar to you, Craig, I used to walk into a gym and not even think about stretching.
Right.
It wasn't even
Yeah.
a thought of me doing. I've been active and fit and working out since my 20s. I'm 36 now. So it's been a good 16 to 20 years, let's say. And stretching was kind of no, I have a limited amount of time. I'm not going to spend it on that. I'm going straight to
Right.
the weights, straight to the machines. I'm going to do my work and get out of here. So that was my mindset, just to kind of set the stage of where my head was at. So I've never been this kind of yogi, stretch kind of person. So I've survived 2 near-death motor vehicle accidents in the last
Wow.
10 years. So I think statistically, like I should really just be dead at this point.
You buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, right. So I've had multiple concussions. I've broken my collarbone. I've had ribs break on both sides of me. Both of my lungs have collapsed.
Oh my gosh.
I've ruptured organs and I've literally bled out of my organs internally. My pelvis is broken open. I have 3 big bolts going from side to side through my pelvis. I've broken my ankle. I have 2 plates and 13 screws down there. So I'm a bit of a robot. And I've been through the destruction of my body and the rebuilding of my body, not once, but twice.
Yeah.
And the first time I was young, I was in, let's say, like the spring, summer season of my life. And again, my body was a little bit more giving on its recovery. And I was able to kind of make it through that one a lot easier. The second one, the more recent one, was tough. That's the one with the pelvis breaking open. And at that time, I didn't really realize, again, how important the pelvis is. It kind of connects your upper body to your lower body.
Yeah.
And like,
Right.
whoa, I didn't even think about that. Like my brain wasn't even working in that way is what I'm trying to say. So I spent COVID in and out of hospitals and emergency
Oh, wow.
rooms and ICUs. And that was my COVID experience. And I got a point where I was in a wheelchair, if you can even imagine. I mean, the expectation was that I was going to walk again with time and recovery, but I didn't know what my body was going to be like at that point.
Yeah.
So when it came to learning how to walk again and like kind of understanding what my body was now, like it was just kind of being like a different person. Like, what can I do? What can I do? I was on some of the heaviest pain medication you can imagine. I was on nerve blockers. I was on muscle relaxers. I was on antidepressants. I was broken up in the head and in the body. So it got to a point where I had to decide, is this something I'm going to settle for? And I'm thinking, boy, like I'm in my early 30s. If I'm going on this stuff now,
Right.
what's my life going to even look like in the next 10, 20, 30 years if I'm fortunate to even make it that far in life?
Yeah.
So I decided to figure it out. And again, just to explain you to my mindset, I was going to physical therapy and it was challenging for me to stick to the exercises they were giving me. Yeah. As it was just kind of in a tough place that I felt so overwhelmed with what I was doing. I tried to do yoga and that seemed so complicated and intimidating to me.
Yeah.
I wanted to do Pilates, but the studios were in and out of being closed because it was COVID. And again, very intimidating and so scary to me. And I can relate to that with a lot of different other men that I meet. Just the thought of like those kinds of things, or they're such woman-centric kind of exercise and things to do that it's a little bit intimidating. So I was thinking, where do I fit in? All that was so overwhelming to me. So I decided, you know what, like, let me just stretch. Let me just do the most basic possible thing that I can do.
Right.
just kind of work out all this tension that I have in my body, all this discomfort I have, all this tightness that's in it. And I started doing that. And believe it or not, I was too embarrassed even to stretch in the gym. I felt like, oh my God, watch me. Like, I'm going to be judged. I don't know what I'm doing. So I just did it in the comfort and the ease of my own home, in privacy of my own home. And it's just kind of like that developed into like, you know what? Let me stretch the gym before I work out. And that was just such a novel thing in my life at this point. And it's so funny to look back now because now it's just kind of muscle memory. I'm going into the stretches, I'm foam rolling, prepping for my exercises. So when I got to a point where my body opened up, I was able to improve my posture. I was able to alleviate a lot of the discomfort that was in my body from, again, broken pelvis, lower back, rounded shoulders, bad posture. My background was corporate finance. So I was always in front of a computer, stressed out, working on spreadsheets. And I was just kind of reflecting on my life and the journey it had up until that point. And I was thinking about like, well, what do I have to share with the world at this point? Like, I want to find something deeper and meaningful to do with my life. And I thought about it, and I was reflecting on my recovery process and just from the accident, the more recent one I had had. And I thought, you know what? I wish that there was somebody that could have came to my house and just moved my limbs around, because I had an X-fix drilled into my pelvis and I was basically kind of like a vegetable laying in bed. I thought, if somebody could have came just kind of moved my legs around and like moved my arm around or done something to me, like that would have been nice. So that was the inspiration to build Postura. And Postura started on working on myself and seeing the positive impacts that it had on my body. And I thought, you know what? I want to share this with other people. And now it's kind of developed into a wide range of things. I work with older adults. I work with middle-aged adults. I work with teenagers that are athletes trying to go into college, D1 type schools. There's something for everybody with stretching, and each client is so unique. It's such a personalized program that we do, tuned specifically for what you're looking to do and what you're looking to accomplish. And sometimes the goals are not that tight and clear for most people. Some people really want this to be some people, this is the only source of exercise that they get. A lot of my older adults, like, this is all they do. And I'm thinking, if all you're going to do is this, then at least let it be stretching. At least let this be that foundational exercise that you're doing. So for some of them, it's just a mix of other things that they're doing. They're doing physical therapy. They're seeing a personal trainer. They're also seeing me. So there's something for everybody here. Again, it's almost kind of like, at this point, it's like drinking water and breathing and eating. It's like core thing to do for ourselves. So that's kind of the story of how Postura came to be out of these really, I guess you could say, traumatic events that happened to me.
I would say so. But it is also a great illustration of like people who have injuries, whether it's, death, near death experience is sort of traumatic, or just
something chronic,
jacked your ankle at pickleball, I mean, your brain, and I keep coming back to this, but like your brain puts all of these sort of safeties in, but you can, with somebody like Kevin, push past those and your brain goes, okay, well, that's not a problem. Erase that problem now.
And then open up so much more opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, to see, like, I'll post the picture. I'll put up a picture of Kevin, some of his hardware in his pelvis. It's like, dang, like you are not strolling through the airport metal detector. You were going to say something.
Well, I'm just curious, what does a typical session look like say for an empty nester who has a brand new look on life and wants to reinvent themselves? What does a typical session look like, entail, time frame? What does that look like for you with them?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So first and foremost, we come to you. Having that component is actually a very critical part of what we do at Postura, because as I experienced with myself, finding that motivation, finding that inspiration, and holding on to that accountability can be really tough. So having somebody come to you already takes a bunch of excuses and challenges off the table. Second to that, the convenience and privacy that you can have in your own home. This is your space. This is your place where you feel safe and secure. Somebody coming there and there's no fear of judgment. There aren't any distractions around. Like, you can really be in your own space and focus on relaxing in working with your body and kind of understanding what's going on. Those few points are really important to how the sessions, why they are in home and how they start. So the first session typically is an assessment, and we use digital software to measure and assess how your body moves, how your body stands, your posture, your movement, and kind of see, well, okay, what's working and what's not working. So we can set a bit of a baseline digitally using technology to figure out where you're at. After we do that, we get into the table assessment where you're laid down on a mobile table, and we go through your different stretches. We're moving around your limbs. We're saying, okay, you have a little bit more mobility and strength pushing back on me with your left leg versus your right leg. Let's see how much you can move your shoulders. Let's see how well you twist. So there's constant feedback being exchanged between the practitioner and the client. So we put those together and we take a look at, this is where you're doing well. This is where you could do a little bit better. And we think about and talk about what your goals might be. What is it that you want to accomplish? Craig, for instance, with your mom, she would really like to independently be able to walk on her own, in a few months. So we're working towards that. Other people want to advance themselves into pickleball, for instance, or help resolve the discomfort from an injury they might have had.
At pickleball.
So it all kind of, so it all depends. It's all kind of curated and personalized for each individual client. And each session is about an hour long. And we tend to see our clients 1 to 2 times a week. Again, that's very flexible depending on what the goal is. So for your mom, we see her quite often. She's one of the clients that I see more regularly compared to others. So the point is, and the way I've kind of designed it is to give people options, because the bottom line is just really want people to stretch because it had such an amazing impact on my life. So whether I'm seeing a client once a month as more of just a therapeutic kind of session where I get to see them, we can have a chat, we're doing our stretching. It's more of almost kind of like a holistic relaxation kind of experience to ones that I might see on a regular basis, to where we're going on walks, we're pushing each other, we're on the table stretching, they're pushing into my body. It's an exercise to tell me, oh my God, Kevin, this was a lot of work. It's almost like a workout for them. So it can mix and match and be whatever it needs to be, is what the beauty of stretching is. But the fundamental is, hey, let's get up or let's lay down, let's move and kind of heal and recreate our body through stretching.
That's great.
Well, and I love the privacy part of it, because
of course you do.
Only because especially for a guy, to be like Kevin mentioned, I'm not going to stretch. Even I still on the struggle bus, and my wife would stretch for an hour at the gym, and I'm usually like, okay,
you're like, come on, let's go wrap it up.
Are we done yet?
Wrap it up.
And it's funny because this was a couple of weeks ago. We were doing yoga. And so I'm almost always the only man, like 1 or 2, and like 30 women in there. And the other day she's like, okay, we're going to do an eagle pose. And I'm like, I never heard of that before. But she had like one leg wrapped around the other leg and my arms wrapped around each other. And it felt good. And then I was like, okay, I'm 100% standing on one leg right now. I'm thinking like, if I fall over, I'm going to take out this whole row of women. Like they're never going to let me back in this room again. So, and then I'm just constantly trying to not look like a dork, just like trying to not fall over or shivering.
So other men that have similar feelings as you might truly benefit from the personalized stretching aspect as opposed to eagle poses in yoga.
Eagle poses. Yeah. Kevin's like, don't do eagle poses. That's
I don't even know how to do them. And that was the problem. It's and I love yoga. I love bar. I love Pilates. I take part in all those myself. So I fully support all those different arts and crafts. And, and modern medicine too. It's not to knock out. I'm so grateful. Modern medicine saved my life.
But
what I want people to see is that, there's some very core basic things that we can do ourselves. We're always kind of looking for the next shiny object, I think. Like that's kind of how our brain is tuned.
Yes.
and how we see the world. And we're looking for a quick fix, that one
Yeah.
pill that I can take, that one new exercise that I can do. It's like if you get back down to the core, the fundamentals, and I think stretching is one of them, there's a lot of benefit that can be gained from something that simple.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
And speaking of, I mean, modern medicine and you've experienced this. I think we all at this point, if you haven't, you've been extremely lucky of like, but even doctors today, their first thing is like, hey, take this pain medication and
prescription.
mask the pain, but it doesn't solve the problem. And in some ways it may even compound it because now you're just locking into that spot. So I'm sure, especially with seniors, I know from your parents, man, that oftentimes anytime they went in, they just sort of threw this or that drug at them. And I'm sure Kevin doesn't want to like bag on the and the pharmaceuticals or the medical industry, but sometimes I'm sure, you're having to work past like the
conventional world.
Yeah. And also the way your brain is anesthetized and like, you're going to have to like deal with that.
It is. Yeah. It's really tough. That gets into a really tough area because again, everything that I do is something I've personally experienced, right? I've taken that medication. I've seen the positive effects. I've signed the waivers of, I promise not to take this or abuse this kinds of thing, and opiate addiction is a huge issue that we're having.
Yes.
So I get that. And I think it has a time and place for where we're at. But to rely on that as the primary source, some people do need to. I'm not discounting that, but there's other things that can also be done. We just have to do the work. And what Postura does is you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is book a session.
Right.
We'll come and do the work.
Yes.
So it kind of really simplifies this down to the most basic ingredients that you need to progress yourself, have a higher quality of life as you go through the aging process.
That's great.
Well, I think that actually, I think sums it up perfectly, which is stretching. Of all the things you hear about, normally it's like, go to the gym, go run more, go do this, go do a Pilates class or get on your Peloton and, and do all of these very physical things that can injure you or hurt you. But also, like stretching almost seems rudimentary, but unlike a lot of things we're finding out about, it's like you should probably be doing the basics first.
Don't overthink it.
So I definitely do appreciate that you are sort of bringing back like it's cool to stretch.
Just stretch.
Just get back to the basics. That's what it's all about.
No, and this has been great. And again, keep it up with my mother. She's actually super excited. Her goal right now is she wants to be able to travel here because she used to love to travel and she really can't do that anymore. And so, she's excited about traveling here and being able to get on an airplane again and travel. And for the first time, I wouldn't have said that was even possible a couple of months ago. And now she's like, I got this. Like, I think I can do this.
That's great.
And that's
awesome.
huge.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So keep it up, Kevin.
That's great.
Keep moving her around.
So Kevin, where do our listeners, where do our people like us, 55 and older, where can we find you or someone like you to come and help us with our stretching?
Bend us.
Yeah, sure. So I suggest to get a hold of me is going on my website, posturastretch.com. And maybe we can put it into the show notes afterwards.
Yes.
But that's a great way to connect with me. And I'm constantly developing and recreating what I'm doing too. I'm figuring out I'm going through a journey myself with all this. And I'm figuring out how to best serve other people in the world with the different things that they have going on. So I would suggest them going on there, signing up for a newsletter, just to kind of keep in touch with me. I'll share news and things that I'm up to and different things that I'm kind of rolling out to have a larger grasp, more globally, I guess you could say, to help people improve their life through stretching.
Yeah. That's great.
That's awesome. And I think, there are so many things that we talked about this a lot. There are so many things nowadays, especially through social media like these are all the things you can do, but just to get back to the basics, I think is brilliant. And I definitely appreciate you, Kevin.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're making stretching cool. Like I'm gonna feel better about stretching now.
Excellent.
Tomorrow. I'm gonna be just like, hey,
Stretch master.
Kevin said it's cool.
Stretch master.
Stretch master, yeah.
Excellent.
So
I think it's great. And I think that it's so important, and you're living proof of it, Kevin, that just start where you are. Just start where you are, wherever you are, whatever season you're in, wherever your journey is taking you. Start where you are and just enjoy the stretch and enjoy the bettering of your life. So thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it.
It's those unconventional things in life that really make it special, right?
That's right.
That's right. Thanks so much.
So remember, if you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, write a review, reach out and say hi. We'd love to talk to with all of our listeners and get their feedback. And you know how to find Kevin. His stuff will be in the show notes. So go out there, have a wonderful day, and live unconventional lives.
Bye-bye. See you next time. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are our own and reflect our personal experiences and beliefs. We encourage listeners to take what resonates with them and to seek professional advice where needed, especially in matters related to health, fitness, relationships, and parenting. Our conversations are candid, unfiltered, and intended to inspire, but they may not be suitable for all audiences. Always remember, what works for us may not work for everyone, and your journey is uniquely your own.